Alright YouTube, it's a new day. I fired up the X2 for the first time yesterday, and so that made me a little bit happier than I was. I was feeling a little bit down. And I just got home from work and I'm going to play around with it now and try to actually button some stuff up. Even though I fired it up, most of the electronics are not bolted in place and the fuel tank isn't in, a whole bunch of little things like that. So I'm not sure how much footage of that I'll get, but let's see. Okay, so the exhaust is such a mess. I'm gonna pull that back out. I'm gonna figure out a bushing for here that works well. Eventually I'm gonna have to replace these couplers because they're pretty shoddy. These hoses here aren't the right length and they're pretty nasty as well, so I'm gonna have to replace those. I still need to rivet and glue this in place. I bought a bunch of these connectors, which are waterproof connectors, and so I'm going to be rewiring the entire jet ski, but I don't know when I'll get to that. Alrighty, I need to take care of this. I forgot to record it, but I put some glue around the exhaust exit and now I'm riveting it in place. It's quite riveting. I'm gonna put a little dab of silicone over the heads of the rivets just to stop water from gushing in through them. This stuff is in bad shape. I didn't powder coat this piece while I had it apart all winter. Forgot about it. I'd like to get rid of this and just get another one of these hoses here. That's perfect. Look at this. Considering this is supposed to be a performance piece, I don't think it fits all that well. There's like a 1/4 inch gap at the back. I might eventually trim some off of here. So this coupling is 2.5. 1 3/4, 5 inch. I need one of these, which is a 8 by 1.25 by, let's say 40. I think what I'll do is put this in place. I might end up having to take this back out, but I think I'll put this back in and basically get it situated where I want it to be. You can see it wasn't rotated correctly before and it was actually rubbing here. This part had almost wore through the hull. Alright, I thought my camera was recording and it wasn't. So I've installed this cone and I've made it so that one clamp is pointing down. I shouldn't need access to more than one of them, and if I do, I'll deal with that at the time. But I got it on there fitting very securely. The two metal parts are actually making contact, so that's good. That's the way I want it. And now for this part, I should just go to the auto parts store and see if I can find a rad hose with a 90 in it. But I want to see if I can get this wired up and run water to it and test it. So for now, I'm going to put the old pieces back on here. I don't know what sort of dull butter knife they used to cut it off with the last time, but I think I can do a better job. Okay, so the exhaust is all bolted in, as temporary as it may be. I'm going to, I guess, hook up some water lines because they're kind of tricky to get at. and I don't want to add a whole bunch of other stuff and then try to get at them. I'm going to try to get you guys a shot of the water line that I just connected in the hull. It's quite dark in there, so bear with me. This is the water inlet at the back of the exhaust manifold. The hose goes around and connects into the back of the hull right there. And I'm going to use a tie wrap here, or a couple of tie wraps so that it doesn't chafe. And that will hold it up off of the drive shaft. I've decided to take off the exhaust so that I can figure out the best routing, but I'm not going to take it off by taking all the couplers apart because I have all that stuff fitted the way I want. So what I'm going to do instead, what I'm going to try to do instead, I'm going to remove this bolt and then I'm going to take it apart here and try to take the whole thing out. So I'm going to take this bolt, these 3 bolts, and this 1 clamp. And then hopefully I can get it forward enough to get it out. It's proving to be difficult. Oh, look at there, just barely. All right, the exhaust came off, and so that gives me pretty easy access to everything under here. So, doing all of this, I've decided that this is the worst cooling system layout ever, and that it needs a major revamp, but for now, yeah, this is disgusting. The way that West Coast should be ashamed of themselves. This is an aftermarket manifold, and the layout of the cooling is atrocious. It's embarrassing. Like, you can't run hoses without them chafing on stuff. They could have easily, when they were redesigning this to make a performance part, they could have easily made it so that the cooling went a whole lot better than it does. These parts sell for a ridiculous amount of money, and if I were to have made these, I would be embarrassed to put my name on them. It's pathetic. After a whole bunch of fooling around, this is what I came up with. I have the front exhaust manifold water inlet mounted at about a 45 degrees pointed backwards. The line is basically pressed up against the starter so that I have clearance for the exhaust through this area. And then it goes down through the hole in the bed plate. It comes out from underneath the bed plate, and that little area by the motor mount goes along there and connects right there. I have all the clamps on my inlet cooling lines, and I'm going to tie wrap this cooling line to this support, and I thought I would show you guys a bit of a trick for when you don't want a line to chafe through but you need to tie wrap it to something. I don't think you guys are going to be able to see in there, so I'll show you a demonstration out here basically. So my area in there is quite abrasive. I'm tie wrapping it to threads, and so if I just wrapped it like this and tie wrapped it, I would be in trouble because this would move and it would chafe through. So what you do is you actually put the tie wrap around this, and then you put a tie wrap around this, so you don't actually have the materials touching, it's actually the tie wrap touching. So here's an actual real life example of how that is done. Not sure if you guys can see what's going on there, but there's one tie wrap that is wrapped around the bolt, and then my other tie wrap that goes around the hose goes through that tie wrap. And so now this can move around, but it won't actually chafe the hose. A lot of this stuff is really boring and hard to film, so I'm going to do a bunch of this off camera, but basically now I'm going to tidy up some of the wiring. So it's actually been about a week since that last clip. I've been busy with the jet ski, kind of going through a lot of the fiddly little things. I did a bunch of wiring, finished up the plumbing, installed the fuel lines, the gas tank, a bunch of that stuff, and I also did some modifications. I will be showing in an upcoming video, for one, the thing that I built to transport the jet ski on. I will also give you guys a look at my trim lever setup. Oh yes, I started making these billet pieces for a support. So basically this piece is going to bolt in here, and then I'm going to have a rod that goes from between here and the front hinge mount. Rad Dudes and a couple other companies make a piece that you can bolt on there. It's quite expensive, and I have a mill and a lathe, so I figure I can make something work myself. I made this one part off camera because I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. People who have done it have made it sound a whole lot more complicated than it is, so I'm going to try to get footage of making the one for the other side and also the front attachment and the part that I use in between here. More or less, I'm trying to make a place to mount stuff. I made a place to mount my relay box here, and although it works, it vibrates around a lot. I'm not happy with that at all. It looks okay, but yeah, there's a lot of harmonics there and it vibrates around quite a bit. That's gonna do it for this video. One last thing before I go, I will fire this up and show you guys what it sounds like. I kind of forgot how many things I actually did to this. I was going to close the video there, but I'll show you guys. I actually installed a lanyard switch in here where the strap used to go. I don't need a strap, so yeah. And I also put these waterproof connectors on. Unfortunately, I was quite busy and doing other things, so I didn't actually get any footage of doing this wiring or installing this part. I've been working on making some stuff over there as well, some woodworking projects, and as I mentioned earlier, making this thing for actually moving the jet ski around. So yeah, I've been quite busy. I haven't been able to get as much footage as I would have liked. One of my next videos will be on making the thing that I'm going to use to transport the jet ski. And then I'm going to make a short video probably on explaining how I made my trim lever setup. So that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.